Hi everyone, welcome to Type Talks. Today we're here to talk about all 9 Enneagram types of the ENFJ personality. And so, Diane, can you tell us a bit about you?
Sure. Hi, I'm Diane. I am a 1-wing 2 social sexual, maybe recovering 1-wing 2 social sexual. My journey started with the Enneagram. So this is where I first started with kind of seeing the inner parts of myself, being able to see myself reflected back a little bit better. There's pain there to really see yourself, but there's also growth there. And so I'm excited to talk about Enneagram and how it relates from my perspective as an ENFJ 1-wing 2 Enneagram type.
Very cool. A trend that I'm seeing in this panel and with ENFJs I know is that the most common instincts for them is social, then sexual, but they can be many different instinctual stackings. And Seema J?
Hello, so I'm Samaje. I'm an ENFJ 2-wing 3, and I'm kind of opposite of Diane. I started with MBTI. Then when I went to go kind of deep into trying to figure out more about myself, then I went to the Enneagram. And I think that what she said about learning self-awareness and all that kind of stuff is very eye-opening, and you get to also improve yourself in the process. So I'm very excited to hear everyone else's journey.
Yeah, the Enneagram, it goes into your darkness more immediately. So it tells you what is cringy about you or what is the dark within you. So it's a very cool tool. And Emers?
Hi, you can call me Emrys. I'm a Enneagram 3 Wing 2 sexual social. I started out getting interested in MBTI in university where I met Denzel, and then he indoctrinated me into the rest of it over the course of a few years, where there was always another component of analysis of human personality that he was intrigued by and that I found equally affirming and helpful for understanding people. I'm into esoteric spirituality, social justice, liberation work, D&D, and staying up till 3 a.m. having conversations like this.
Yeah, what better way to keep yourself up late at night than talks about personality? Getting your fix right here. And Ella?
Hi, I'm Ella. I am an Enneagram 4 Wing 3. I'm into like spirituality, esoteric things, self-awareness, alignment. So I love learning about myself. I've taken an Enneagram test before, but when I moved into this house, for those of you who don't know, Denzel and I are roommates, and we were talking a lot about that kind of thing. So that's really what got me to narrow down my Enneagram type. And I would probably say I identify as social sexual, and I'm really excited to see and be in a room full of other ENFJs and know all of your Enneagram types.
Thank you for that, Ella. And something you'll notice from the ENFJs talking so far is that they have a really sing-songy voice for a lot of them. Like feelers tend to have a sing-songiness to their voice that you can hear from people talking. And Stephanie?
Hello, I'm Stephanie. I'm an ENFJ 5-wing 4 sexual self-preservation. And I got into MBTI, I think in about 2013 or so. And I think I might have explored Enneagram back then, but I was super confused. I thought I was a 4 or a 9. And then in about 2020, I had a chat with Denzel, and we kind of pinpointed that I was a 5, and then my whole existence made sense. So it's been really helpful to understanding just how much inner conflict I experience being an ENFJ and a 5. But yeah, I'm excited to be here with all of you and learn more.
Yeah, as you can see from this panel, we're just kidnapping a bunch of Denzel's friends and putting them here today. He's the king of ENFJs. And Tina?
Hi everyone, I'm Tina. I'm ENFJ, Enneagram 6. I got into Enneagram pretty recently, so I've always known that I was an ENFJ since in university. So I had a professor who actually got me into MBTI, and he was able to type me right away. So I was like, what is this magic? What is this sorcery? How does he know me like that? So I started looking into personal development, personality types, just knowing about different things that people offer and different things that people are, it really piqued my interest. And being friends with Denzel and Joyce, they really opened my eyes to the world of just understanding differences and, how people are the way they are. And so when I looked at Enneagram, I figured I am really a 6, and you guys will see why as I explain myself. But I'm excited to be here, and I'm excited to learn from all you guys.
I notice when ENFJs are 6s, they tend to be social 6s. It's just a trend for people who are curious. All right, and Cameron?
Jeez, call me by my government name. My name is Cameron. That's what my mom named me, but please call me Cam. Cameron makes me feel like I'm in trouble. I am an ENFJ. I'm a 7. I don't know what those really mean. Like, I know what they mean on the surface level, but again, like many of the rest of you, I got into this because of my boy Denzel. He taught me a lot about this stuff, and I'd like to know more. I don't know if I'm a social, sexual, or whatever.
Social.
I'm social
For sure.
I can dig it. Sexual feels a little nasty to say out loud. What you do is your own business, but that's me. I'm trying to think something interesting about myself. I'm a Christian. I'm a musician. I like to hang out with people, and it's good to see Joyce, Emrys, Stephanie, and Tina, and of course Denzel. We've all been on other MBTI typing videos before because of the one and only Denzel Mensah. So good to see y'all again.
Most of the ENFJs in the community know about Denzel. And so when I'm like, they're ENFJ, they must know Denzel is my second association. So, all right. And so, Danny, I'm curious about you.
Yes. So I was also, like all of you, just to not take too much time, into the self-development and stuff like that. So it was like 2018, I think it was about MBTI first. First, I thought I'm INFJ, but something didn't really, like I'm not introvert. So yes, definitely ENFJ. And then from there, of course, like all of you, I went further and with Enneagram as well. And I thought for a longest time that I might be 2 or 4 or something like that. And I'm like, something is not right. So I had actually a coach, and he went with me and he said to me, I kind of went through everything, but I'm like, yeah, I can't be 8 because of stereotyping thing. And he said, no, you definitely kind of 8. And we went through it, and I'm like, wow, this is absolutely me. And so I'm kind of here to rock the boat and to say some stuff about 8 that it's not really out there, that people saying some stuff that they are really not on. And so you have different side of 8. So they're not also, out there horrible, kind of. So yes, yeah, that's short.
Yeah, so those stereotypes of the bully can go away because you're going to let people know the real information about how 8 shows up in the ENFJ. And Denzel?
Yeah, what's up, everyone? My name is Denzel Mensah. I'm a life, personal development, and relationship coach, ENFJ, 9-wing-1, social sexual. I got into Myers-Briggs back in 2015. And yeah, I'm trying to see, I won't throw much detail into that. But yeah, I got into Myers-Briggs back in 2015, started talking about it on YouTube, and then eventually started talking about that and other concepts, and that starts collect. I used to think that I was an Enneagram 2, a social 2, and I just thought I was a very healthy 2 because there was a lot of parts of it where I was like, oh yeah, I don't really relate to that. I guess I just I'm just good. And then on Twitter, actually, people were comparing me to another ENFJ in the community who also identified as a 2. As a sexual 2, and I just thought our only difference is that, oh yeah, well, she's a sexual 2, I'm a social 2. But they're like, no, Denzel, y'all both can't be 2s. I think that you're probably a 3. And I was like, me 3? Like, she's the one with 17,000 subscribers and all this stuff. Like, I was like, and then actually the thing that really stumped me was I didn't know about arrow line movements. And so somebody asked me well, do you have arrow movement to 8? And I was like, no, which is probably already telling about my type. was like, oh no, like that anger. I'm not like that. And then they're like, yeah, then you can't really be a 2. And I was like, oh. So then I started exploring 3, and I was like, okay, I could see how people might see me that way, but if even being radically honest with myself, like this isn't the core issue here. So I got profiled professionally. That session is even like the audio is on my channel. And at the end, you literally just hear like, Denzel, you're not a 2 or a 3, you're a 9. And I'm like, huh, because I'd never considered 9 before. But as soon as like I started like looking into it more, especially as a social 9, that's the counter type, then I immediately said to myself out loud, I was like, oh wow, I'm pathetic. And that's how I knew that this was the right type for me. Because they say that Enneagram is supposed to like point out like, you know, your weaknesses and defense mechanisms and all that. So it's like, oh yeah, I'm not a healthy 2. I'm a 9. But I've done a lot of work since then, and it's been great knowing like, oh, this is how I usually cope with certain things due to my traumas or whatever it might be. And yeah, I'm excited to see how that also surfaces for other people with the same cognitive functions as we do.
The Enneagram, it's supposed to tell you about your darkness. And so it's easy to read an Enneagram profile description and relate to it on the good side. But it's easier to find your Enneagram type when you look at the defense mechanism, the fixations, and the passion, and the core of how you cope with situations because of your Enneagram type. And so, hi, my name is Joyce. I'm a certified MBTI master practitioner, and I facilitate the instrument in organizations. I also help people on the discovery process of figuring out their best fit type, and I offer coaching services. All right, we are here to talk about Enneagram. And so we'll start with Enneagram 1, and that would be Diane. And so my question for you is, what do you relate most to about your Enneagram type?
We'll just get right into it. Definitely for me, being a 1, having really high standards is definitely something that I suffer from for myself, for other people. I'm social, I'm sexual, so I approach that unconsciously for a long time in my life. More consciously now, I've learned to embrace my 9 wing a bit more than I did before I understood all of this. But really, I have an inner dialogue all the time that things could always be better. We could always improve. And I need to model that. I need to lead the way. I need to show everyone how it's done, and they'll follow me. And then if they don't, that's where the social comes, or that's where the sexual comes in. And then it's like, well, you just need to do it. It's one of those things like, do as I say, not as I do. So sometimes I'll start to vent, right? So sometimes I'll need a release. And for me, I've seen that that show up with, I guess, finding appropriate places for that release. So I can't quite get rid of the need to be appropriate. I'll just find the appropriate place to act like I want to act and to sort of release and not be so perfect all the time. And for me, sometimes, you know, as bad as it is to admit, alcohol is the gateway to that. Alcohol helps me relax and get into that. And so I think that's a tool that I found, you know, good or bad. It's something that I found pretty early in life. And it helped me to just kind of have that, I don't know what it's called in some of the readings, that escape hatch, if you will.
Yeah. The trapdoor behavior of the Enneagram 1.
There you go. Exactly. Yeah. So for me, by far and away, it's that high standards. They're always there. It makes me come off pretty self-righteous in some contexts. You know, I'm the person who's in there redoing the dishes because they weren't put in there right. You know, like somebody else did the dishes. Great. Oh, I'm in there like quietly trying to redo them without them necessarily knowing. So it's like, it's something that I push outward. It's something that's just always a narrative inside. And it's not easy for me to sit here and say that about myself. And I think that's when you know you've found the right type. It shouldn't, you just shouldn't be sitting there relating to the good parts and being out there saying, oh, I'm just a healthy whatever. No, when you find the right one, it's kind of cringy. And that's really, once you see it, then you can start to back away from it, and it doesn't define you. I don't anymore say, that I follow all the patterns of a one wing to social sexual. I think that I've learned to balance it a bit. It's still always the narrative. It's still my natural flow. It's still my natural tendency. But I have more conscious control of the day-to-day decisions.
And so the Enneagram particularly likes to say your personality type is who you are not. And so I'm glad that you're able to exhibit that more and more, Dan. So yeah, I would love to ask you about your relationship with the defense mechanism of the Enneagram 1 called reaction formation. This is when the Enneagram 1 has a very active inner critic telling them what is and isn't acceptable. And they tend to need to make sure everything in them is in line with their high standards and that nothing is out of that line as much as possible. This means ignoring how they feel about things to do what is right, what they see as right. And so, yeah, Diane, I'll let you take it away.
Yeah, so I relate this a little bit to my use of NI and the reframe that NI is good at. I think that reaction formation for me is basically kind of the definition is being able to turn something into its polar opposite. So when it comes to emotions, kind of seeing the positive in anything, whatever it is, whatever terrible situation you might be in, whatever chaos I might have grown up in, whatever it was, I think that I have the natural defense to see the good in all of that, to hold on to the happy emotions, the positive emotions, and really look at those and then push away the negative emotions, push away maybe impulses. Maybe the natural impulse, in a situation like that would be to rebel. Instead, I doubled down on being the good girl and, doing what was right. And that's just kind of how I coped. That's how I coped with childhood. That's how I coped early on as an adult. I think I was able to let go of it a little bit more. And it's always a work in progress, allowing myself to be goofier, allowing myself to be, more free flowing, especially in mixed company. But that's kind of how I see it, is really focusing on the positive, pushing down, ignoring the negative. And it's a stretch to really look at the negative feelings and let those in completely.
Yeah, and that's partially from the extroversion too. So there's a lot of research done on how extroverts are more likely to reframe things as positive because it's a more active emotion that you can do things in the external world. If you keep yourself positive or even angry, it keeps you going. Repressing the impulses and the urges is a very one thing. And so, Diane, I'm curious about your relationship with the passion of the one, which is anger. Ones tend to feel irritated between the difference between what is happening and what is right. So I'm curious. I'll pass it to you.
I'm feeling real naked here. I guess that's what this is about, right? So the more you push the negative emotions are part of life. They're part of reality. You can't always have positive emotions. And the more your coping mechanism is set up to push them down and pretend they don't exist and find the positive in everything, it doesn't make it not be there. And so it starts to bubble up. And so for type 1, the passion is anger. And so that looks to me like inside me, it's just an irritation. It's, the more they bubble up and the less I acknowledge them, the more I just get annoyed with the littlest of things. I start to go through that narrative in my mind of, I worked so hard to do the right thing and make the choice, and I want to do things that I don't do. Why doesn't everyone else do the same thing? Like, why do I have to sit here and be the one doing all this hard work? And so it comes off again when that starts to vent, especially with the people closest to you. That looks like self-righteousness. That looks like it's anger. I mean, that's what it is. And so yeah, it's hard to look that in the face and admit that that's a part of who I am, but I have to, because it's the truth.
There is this anger when things aren't the way that they should be. Well explained. With ones, they may deal with black and white thinking when they're younger, and as they get older, they learn to find gradations of that black and white, but they still have high standards, and they're like, I still have expectations for how this will go. All right. And so we're going to move on to the fixation of the one, which is resentment. This is paying attention to flaws so that nothing ever seems good enough. How does this manifest in you?
So I think for me, I touched on that. I got a little ahead of us there, and I touched on that a little bit on the last answer, but resentment really kind of bubbles up in a way that, it's that I'm trying to live up to impossible standards. And I sort of expect those impossible standards of everyone else. And I feel like everyone else should know them. I shouldn't have to tell them. If they need a little reminder, they should just watch what I do. Oh, this is horrible to say out loud. But like, y'all are going to have your turn here in a minute. I just have to go first. Yeah, it's really there. Like, it's really gross.
You're setting an example for us, Diane, just like an Enneagram 1 should.
Thank you for that validation, Denzel. I appreciate it. And really, it's really there. Those impossible standards, it comes to that. Like, my standards are always too high. It bled over into my parenting. I'm a mom of early 20s kids, and they're getting into adulthood now, and we're able to have some more honest conversations. And I was hard on my kids. I had high expectations. I love them like crazy, and I know that our relationship was really strong, but because of the expectations and high standards that just run in me as a narrative all the time, those of course bled over onto my expectations for my kids, and anger would come out. It would. Anger a lot of times would be kind of the vent, yelling, and those kind of ugly face mom things.
The self-pres one is perfectionist. The sexual one is a zealot. And then the social one is the positive role model, or the perfect role model. In a way, I'm thankful, like what Denzel said, for you role modeling vulnerability first. So it makes you cooler in our eyes. That takes us to Simaje. My first question for you is, what do you resonate most about being an Enneagram 2?
So my personal opinion, I did have a battle between being type 2 or type 9, because I did think that I was very, like, I kind of thought I was just a healthy 9 in a way, because the trait that I most relate to is, of course, the people pleasing. And for me, I was always kind of a person who tried to keep the peace, and I would kind of like direct attention to me if there's conflict, to make sure that everything around me stays stable in my house, in my school, and everything that I've done in my life. So I think that the people pleasing is very big, because sometimes like I will even like not even focus on my own needs, or even figure out, like, I'll be like, oh, like, I have a panel at 9:00, but I'm like, oh, but my friend might need help. Like, I need to ask them what's going on. Or like my friend's texting me like, oh, like, Samaji, I'm not sure what I want to do. I'm like, I'm doing something, but yeah, like, so like, I definitely started to see, in a way, I was like, definitely the type 2. And I just want to applaud Diane, because I did research about type 1s, and it's very, like, I can understand like that stress of the perfection, and then having to be vulnerable right now. I really applaud you for that. Like, that's really awesome. And because I feel like for me as a type 2, another trait I relate to is we are very like vulnerable. Like, it's kind of natural for us. Like, I feel like we kind of like always are sharing our feelings. I don't really internalize them a lot. I'm always like, oh, I feel sad, I'll talk about it to make myself feel better. So it's like, sometimes like I think type 2s, we have like some type of avoidance about like how we feel deep inside. Then the last one we'll go into probably deeper, but I definitely realized that my biggest sin is pride. So that kind of hit me like a truck when I read it.
And I can see the flavoring of ENFJ in there. ENFJs oftentimes will spread themselves thin for other people to help meet their needs. And so Diane today with me, actually, she was like, hey, I need to take care of this other person while we're doing this other thing, Joyce. And so I'm like, wow, very ENFJ of you. So you guys will relate in solidarity of being there for people at the expense of your own comfortability. And so, Simaje, I would love to ask you about your defense mechanism as a 2, which is repression. So this is when 2s are prone to hiding their true feelings, wishes, and fears and needs when they feel they are too difficult. What are your thoughts?
So when it comes to repression, I think that was like one of the biggest things I had to kind of start to accept. And I think that Enneagrams really helped me with that, because a lot of times I think that I applaud myself for being very compliant. If I was with my friends and like, they just wanted to go and eat, but I'm more of like a activities person. So I'll be like, oh, like, like, why don't we do laser tag or skating or something? And like, I think a lot of times I hid myself and I just tried to like be a chameleon kind of to like the group. If like, everyone's like, oh, let's get boba. And I'm like, I kind of don't actually like boba, but like, I don't like, if they watch this, they're gonna know that, but no one knows that. And I was like, but it's like a lot of times like I feel like sometimes type 2s, like I don't know if it's just me, but like I feel like sometimes we don't have a personality for ourselves, and it kind of like makes me kind of feel fake in a way, because I want to be friends with people, and I think that being friend is to comply, is to just go with them and not be someone who's like, kind of interrupting the flow, which is like I think a type 4 kind of thing. And I was like, which I need to learn. But yeah, I definitely think that. But one thing I want to add about that is that I do think that that can cause a stress, because I do realize that I kind of make a social contract because of it. And sometimes I might track it and I'll be like, I did this for you, I sacrificed this for you. And then I'm like thinking about it. Then when someone else says like, oh, Samaje, I don't want to do this when you said, I'm like, well, I do everything. Like, what are you trying to say? Like, okay, like, what is this? Is this really a friendship? And then I think that that's where the pride probably is.
That's that arrow movement to 8 that I was talking about earlier too. But yeah.
Yeah, what Denzel said, the arrow movement to 8 is the path to growth. And for Diane, you could hear a lot of arrow movement to 7 in her responses too. So you're hearing the arrows in action. All right, Simaje. Then that brings us to the passion of the 2, which is pride. So this is being indispensable to another person. You do want to go into this?
Yes. Well, so I feel like when it comes to our pride, I sometimes think that we have like this kind of mater mindset, or I also sometimes I think that I know more than the other person what they need, instead of like asking them or listening to what they say to me about what they need. So a lot of times, like, and it's kind of hard because I know like one memory I have as a kid is that I was in a daycare, and it like stuck with me, because I think that's why Enneagram kind of hit me really hard. Is that my daycare provider, she said that she's like, Samaj, you're the type of person that you find someone and you like want to like build them up, and like you think that you're like higher than them and all almighty. Yeah, she told this to a child, but I was like, but then it was kind of like it stuck to me for some reason. And even though like I walked through life and I was like, my like parents tried to convince me it wasn't true, but there was something inside me that I was like, I do kind of sometimes feel like I do have like that kind of pride issue. Sometimes like I think that I know best and everyone needs to follow my example, because like I think about it so much. So I'm just like, I'm always thinking about you. So I know what's best for you. You don't know what's best for you. I do. And it's like, and then sometimes that can be very toxic, because I get into difficulties where I'm in a lot of codependent relationships, and I had to struggle a lot with that, because but I think it made me grow. But like a lot of times, like I remember watching a lot of videos about Enneagram 2s, and they said that sometimes our pride, sometimes like even though we're trying to like feel something inside of ourselves, we also keep the person that we're dealing with where they're at, even if they are at a bad place. So sometimes like I don't really give my friends or relationships opportunities to actually grow in themselves, because I'm always under them. And then it kind of becomes toxic, because then now they're relying on me for everything. They need me for everything. And in a way, I'm not helping them, even though I think I like that was like the point of the whole entire thing. So I think that kind of opened me up. And I think that they said the big thing for type 2s is that they need to spend time alone. They really need to really think about their intentions before they go out in the world. And I think that's very important because this is very vital. So any type 2s out there, y'all need alone time. Please do it, because we have this thought mindset in our head that we're like, I'm just providing, I'm a good person. Like, that's what we do. But then a lot of times we're like, I'm just validating my own ego. Oh, like, and it's really hard to swallow. But I was like, the more I spend time by myself, I really thought about the people that have been in my life and why I do the things I do. And I was like, Samaji, that's not really like, what's that word? It's not really freak, like self-giving, like it's something like that. It was like, it's selfless. It's not as selfless as you once thought it was. So yeah.
The 2 is giving a little bit of fool's gold in that sense. They're like, I'm helping you, but in some way I expect something in return eventually. And so, cool. That brings us to the fixation of the 2, which is flattery. This is the gaining of acceptance through giving compliments or other forms of attention to others.
So like, I don't know if that already kind of like slips through already. I was like, I feel like once I joined here, I was like, oh my God, hey. And I was like, I think that's also like a thing. I think that like they said that type 2s, sometimes like our childhood trauma is that we wanted like kind of like a parental like authority, and like we didn't have that much attention. So they said that we kind of go the maternal route to complement it. And I think that's very true. So sometimes I try to come off very useful and very open, even though like deep inside, I think I'm a lot more like guarded than I like originally thought. But I do think that flattery, because in my head, I'm kind of like, that's the ticket to anyone's heart. Everyone loves to talk about themselves. Everyone wants to feel higher than you. They want to teach. Everyone likes to teach. No one wants to listen. So I think that like sometimes I started to develop that mindset as a kid, and I was like, oh, like, when I go to someone, I'm just like, oh, you're so cool. Or like, oh, like, can you teach me this? And like, sometimes like I kind of attach myself to people, especially like if I idolize them. Like I find someone I idolize, and then I kind of like just match them, and I just go around them and I follow everything that they do. And I think that goes with my wing 3. I think that's something that like, I think there's attachment there. And I was like, but I definitely do think that that's like a situation I do, because like if I'm a part of like a club, like I always like be like, oh, you're so pretty, what's your name? Or like, oh my God, you're so cool. Like I'm in Taekwondo, so I'm like, oh, you kick, how you do that? Wow, like I'm your number 1 fan. And like, and I was like, and I'm like, and I'm kind of like doing this, I'm like a cheerleader. And then I was like, but then sometimes like I think it goes back to the pride about, I'm like, oh, like I get accepted, and then now I'm in the circle, and then now like there's stuff I can do. And I think that that's where the intentions need to be aligned. So I started to like really look at myself, and I think weirdly enough, I think it kind of takes me to a 1 kind of situation, or maybe it's a 4 of finding my own like personality and identity. And I'm like, Samaji, what do you want to work on? And it's okay to find people that can help you there, but also it's like, make sure that it's a mutual or it's beneficial for both. And it's not like I'm coming off as like I say fake, but I don't know if there's a better word for like vain, to make myself feel better. And I was like, but yeah. And then like, yeah, because a lot of times like I come across, I think a lot of people think of me as vain because I'm kind of like, oh, like I idolize them, but then sometimes like that idolization is kind of like, oh, because I'm gonna be you, I can become you, and then I can like, be that too. So it's kind of like, it's like a extroverted like at them, and I'm like, oh, I'm hyping you up to make me up, like so like, yeah.
So when you said at the beginning how you've been a fan for 3 years of my channel, and then I was like, oh, you're gonna have a channel soon? You're like, maybe. Now I see what was happening. I'm just messing with you.
When it comes to the channel, it's not going to, like, I was like, I don't know if it would be MBTI related. That's why I was like, maybe.
Yeah.
But
no, I'm just messing with you. I'm just poking. But that's interesting.
I'm vulnerable right now. You can't do that. I'm sharing my dark side.
All love. My turn is coming.
Well, I appreciate your excitability around type celebrities. Flattery is the way to Joyce's heart if it's not to everyone's heart, and just letting you guys know. With the Enneagram too, there's ego around being someone's special friend. And so you want to become people's special friend. For some twos, they might even want this special friend with a lot of people. It's like, oh, I just want you to view me like that. And there's some vanity around that. The 3 subtypes of 2, in a very quick Spark Notes way, the self-pres 2 is almost the childlike 2 that's the counter type. So they actually want people to give to them, but they're like childlike and innocent and lovable. So people like to take care of them. The social 2 is the leader 2, and the sexual 2 is the seductive 2. So all of the 2s have a level of seduction to them. But, that brings us to Emerus, the Enneagram 3. And so my question for you, Emerus, is what do you relate to about being a 3?
I relate most strongly to the ability and enjoyment of shapeshifting and to the passion and pursuit in one-on-one relationships. So a theme that'll probably come up with mine is that I tend to relate to the shadow aspects of being human with an attitude of seeing the isness of them more than like emotional judgments on them, and tend to relate to them with an attitude of a certain amount of innocence where I kind of dive into the shadow out of curiosity. And so I find myself wanting to both enjoy the shadow as well as grow from it and grow through the enjoyment. So I'll be trying to strike a balance of not doing the 3 thing of painting everything with a attractive brush while also being true to the aspect of me that wants to relate to personal growth through an attitude of lavish desire and enjoyment. So the shape-shifting aspect, and I bring up that framework to say with all of these, they tend to support me when I engage with them in an attitude of love and make things more challenging when I engage with them in an attitude of fear. So the shape-shifting thing is that I have a strong connection to all the different aspects of what I perceive it means to be human. FE helps a lot with that, and I helps a lot with that. So when I am fearful that my needs won't be met or that I have to present in a particularly attractive way in one-on-one relationships in order to get those needs met, or that if I am vulnerable and show like my imperfections, that I won't be desired as a friend or partner or, a strong connection within the community, then the shape-shifting can take on a purpose of presenting the most attractive and appealing version of myself, or really picking from within myself the portions of me that most resonate with the other person, that they find most interesting and attractive, and then emphasizing those, or really just expressing through those. My expression tends to be emphasized in whatever I'm expressing, and just not bringing forward the other parts of me. But when I'm doing it from an attitude of love, the shape-shifting thing becomes a way of becoming all those different archetypes of what it means to be human and enjoying each one. And then similarly, the passion in one-on-one relationships, most of my passion for achievement and for pouring my energy into a particular area of life comes with one-on-one relationships. That includes both romantic and platonic and everything in between. So in the classic like 3 perception that being valued and admired and desired that romantic or one-on-one relationship is the solution to that, is something that I relate to a lot, because most of the time when I've been able to connect very deeply with people and truly be myself and connect most deeply with myself, it's been in the context of romantic relationships. That stems back to, I might get into this with the other aspects, but a lot of my 3-ness is probably connected to, through childhood, I've had very few people who were interested in the same things I was, or who understood me at a deep level. And on top of that, I'm ADHD, that's my neurodivergence. So I ended up masking a lot of that in order to fit in. And so I still tend to struggle with that, where there's a sense that if I don't present in a certain way, that I won't be understood, people won't want to know me deeply and enjoy life with me deeply. And then similarly in friendships, there's less of an intensity of like feeling like that's where I have to get needs met. But there is what's coming to mind is that the deep knowing stuff is usually a thing that takes a long time and lots of different interaction. And I have a tendency to lean towards like just always responding, always being cued into where the other person is at, asking them about what's going on with them, what they're feeling, and not as frequently actually bringing forward what I'm feeling, because it's like, oh, we don't have time to do the like 3 hours it would take for me, so we'll do the 3 hours it'll take for you, that kind of thing. So those two things, the shape-shifting and the one-on-one, are what I relate to.
Yeah, so the 3 and the 2 are the most shape-shifting of all of the Enneagram types. And the 3 likes to look at you, looking at them, looking at you, looking at them. And they like to shape themselves and adjust themselves to how you would best receive them. There's a extreme polishedness with 3s. You just know, like, my favorite word for them is polished. That brings us to the defense mechanism of the 3, identification. And so this type of defense is characterized by the unconscious adoption of another's traits and attributes. Would you like to go into your experience of this, Emrys?
Sure. In taking on the characteristics of another person, it's that seeing what portion of me would be most enjoyable or attractive or interesting to them, and making that what I'm expressing. And usually I can rely on my expression to be very vibrant, whatever I'm expressing. And then so the identification process is usually the leaving out of portions of myself, because I do feel that those aspects of me are genuine, but if I'm only expressing those, then it seems like that's 90% of me or something, and really it might be like 5%. Usually that is from that soft trauma of like never having that deep connection from a young age. So I usually look instead for whether the other person is showing signs of being interested in going deeper, or whether they just like respond to the role I'm playing in a given social situation and aren't really interested in digging beneath that. And I'm getting better at bringing more of myself into each social situation. But I would say one of the things I struggle with as far as growth in this area is that it feels really hard to authentically bring all the parts of myself to a given expression. And I don't know if maybe people who have strong FI do it differently or something, but I usually feel like, it would take me 3 hours to completely express my authentic self in its entirety. And it's not always obvious to me what part of myself is coming forward authentically in an FI way, in part because I have fairly less developed FI as an ENFJ. So it's not always obvious to me what authenticity would look like in a given situation, because it's just not coming to the surface. What's coming to the surface is here's 30 different aspects of you that you could go into, and all of them are authentically me, but some of them fit the situation better than others. And what combination of them, or what emphasis, or what time frame would actually be authentic in this space, or more authentic, I guess.
Yeah, that's true. So selectively showing parts of yourself that fit the circumstance. I can see the extroverted feeling flavoring right there. I would like to talk about self-deceit. This is the false image about you deceiving yourself about who you really are and trying to be someone else that other people admire or see value in.
Yeah, so this has mainly shown up for me in difficulties identifying, communicating about, and asking for needs in relationships, to have my needs met. Because I can look at those aspects of myself that resonate quite well with a given person and see how, yes, I do enjoy engaging with this part of myself, and then either not notice or just not actively engage with the fact that I'm actually not having the relational needs I have met, not engaging with the parts of myself with that other person that I actually really, really want to, and that feel very important and deeply connective to me. And this is particularly challenging in the sexual subtype way in friendships and romantic relationships, because I tend to connect to the meaning aspects of life, to spirituality, to the divine, to the self-examination through one-on-one relationships and through solitude, which is one of the reasons that I thought for a while my second one might be a self-preservation thing. But it's like I see divinity in every other person, and have a really strong desire to step into their world and have them step into my world. And I'll get into that a little more in a moment, but there is both a deep need for connecting that way and a difficulty with perceiving and always communicating about, to a sufficient degree, what I actually need in the relationship, and instead emphasizing those other aspects. I will also say this is partly because I love the breaking of taboos as a spiritual practice, but vanity, I also see it as having aspects related to love and fear. If it's engaged with in a fear type way, it's often a desire to, with Enneagram 3, it's often a desire to avoid like not being seen as interesting or admirable. But when engaged with in love, it again becomes a part of that, like expressing each archetype, because vanity is often like cranking up the intensity on a given aspect of appearance or presentation or personality. And when you intensify a given aspect, that's kind of what an archetype is. It's like a distilled and intensified aspect of humanity.
Well said. Lastly, for the Enneagram 3, their fixation is on vanity, as Emerus already put so wonderfully. So the strategic thinking about how to create an idealized image based on being or appearing to be successful. And so I feel like Emerus might have already covered that in what he's said so wonderfully. And so I'm wondering, do you have any final thoughts on that?
Yeah, and this may actually tie together several of the things like the other one did. But I tend to use a model of my 3 tendencies in relationship that, if you can think about like 2 inner worlds, like planets joined by a bridge or something, I tend to want to walk into another person's inner world when they invite me there, and to feel as they feel, to see the world as they see it, and to celebrate with them what they enjoy about all of that, and to help them with what is painful or difficult for them in all of that. And my desire is usually for them to ask to come into my inner world as well and do the same with me, of feeling as I feel, of seeing the world as I see it, of helping me and of celebrating with me. And then I usually have a desire of us taking our inner worlds and meeting in the middle, and dropping both ego identities, and instead, engaging with the ego identities first together and see what they make together, and then dropping both and seeing what happens when we don't have those inner world identities as much. So all of that, like to bring in vanity to that, in the desire to get into another person's inner world and to entice them into my inner world, there's often a engagement with the tools of vanity, with the emphasis of different aspects of myself, and with the, like I said, the archetypal aspect, because when I can crank up an aspect of myself like that, it's easier to both connect to the aspects of it that are in the other person's inner world and in my inner world. And so you can see how that's kind of like, when we talk about the 3 desire to be desired, to be valued, like that's how I conceptualize it, and that's how I use vanity, both in trying to get that process to happen and in facilitating that process if I'm engaging with the sort of like, let's take the things of the shadow and turn them into integrated tools that we use, if that makes sense.
That totally makes sense. And so Emerus is a really good example of abstract language. If you're wondering, what does abstract language sound like versus concrete language? Emerus is at like the very far end of being abstract. People wanting to learn MBTI are wondering how intuition in speech looks like. I think Emerus is a really good example of far end intuitive talk. And so the 3 subtypes of the 3 are: the self-preservation 3 has vanity for having no vanity. or seeming like they're not vain. They're the interesting one. The social 3 is the most competitive of the 3s and the most stereotypically 3 of the 3s. And the sexual 3 is the charming. Okay, I'm accidentally going to be distilling these down a little too simplified, so I'm sorry if I'm overly simplifying it to make it a little not as accurate as it could be. With the sexual 3, they are the most charming of the 3s in terms of interpersonally, narrowing down on that one connection, like being able to zero in on people charming of the 3s. So, and that moves us to Ella. Could you let us know about the aspects of 4 you relate the most to?
Yes. So I'll start with the caveat that, kind of like Cam, I have a very surface understanding of the Enneagrams. But I would probably say the aspect that I relate the most to is the desire to like find myself, create that identity, and then express that identity creatively. So I think this, like, I'm obsessed with myself, honestly. And I think this shows up in like me doing readings for myself, wanting to know my personality type, my life path number. I'm really into like tarot and oracle cards. So I'm constantly doing readings on myself to see how I really feel, like not how I think I feel, but like subconsciously how like my soul feels. It drives me to, even though I like my comfort zone of like doing the same thing, I'm always also seeking new experiences because I'm like, maybe I'll like that better. And maybe like that's a better fit for me. And then wanting to express that to other people and also kind of try to get them on my wave of newness. But really just always trying to learn about myself and what makes me tick, even if I'm doing something that I may not actually think that I like or enjoy. I think it will teach me something about myself. So I'll continue and I'll do that. And I think that's probably what I relate to the most. And sorry if you guys hear my cat eating. She just chose to eat at this exact moment.
She wants to be on video and she
She does.
wants some attention. Maybe that's indicative of her Enneagram type. Kidding. Yeah, thank you, Ella, for sharing that. With the Enneagram 4, we're going to go diving into the defense mechanism first. And so this is introjection. This is when you take things and you internalize them, you introject them. So you take it and you make it personal and it sticks with you. So, yeah, how do you experience introjection?
I guess I'd probably experience it the most when people have an opinion about me. Like if they think negatively of me, I think I'm always trying to control my self-image. So if people think negatively of me, instead of me being able to be like, oh, that's just how they feel, it's like I feel like maybe it's something that I did to make them think that way about me. I think one of my mentors, one thing that she taught me that I try to live by is that what other people think of you is none of your business. But it's my business. I need to know. And now I need to change it. So I think I tend to let the opinions of others really stick to me. If they say something negative about me or positive also, then I'm like, oh, I also brought that out of you as well. So yes.
Yeah, there is that image consciousness of SE tertiary in ENFJs, like they care about how they look to other people. There's an image management component in all ENFJs. All right. The passion of the Enneagram 4 is envy. It's pretty self-explanatory with that word. So type 4s are always comparing themselves and they see what's lacking or missing, and there's an envy there.
I do think I compare myself to others, but I use that as like a fuel. So if I see someone like have a personality trait that I like, or they've gotten further than me in life, instead of like allowing that to make me feel less than, I actually try to use that to see like what it is that they're doing that I can do better. And I try and use it as like inspiration. I think I got a good, not experience, but like a good handle on envy when I was younger. I come from a very big family with a lot of women who I think are very pretty. and I am kind of into like my image and that kind of thing and how I present myself. So I got a good handle of like knowing that like there are going to be people who are prettier than you, or they're smarter than you, or they have something that makes them special. And like I just also kind of have to rely on like what makes me special, while also adopting the traits that I think make them cool, if that makes sense. So I use that as fuel rather than like to a detriment, but I do compare myself to others often, I guess.
Yeah. I'm wondering how you experience melancholy, which is the fixation of the Enneagram 4. And this is thinking continuously about what is missing. Your thoughts?
I think I experience melancholy with like a constant longing for the past and a regret over like what I could have done differently. So I always like idealize the past experience, even if it wasn't the greatest. So whether that's like past lovers, past friendships, past places that I've gone to, I always kind of feel like there was something great there. Once I'm out of it, I'm like, oh, that really wasn't that bad, or oh, that really fulfilled me, when it probably didn't in real life. Like if I just took a moment and like thought about it, like obviously that's why I'm not in that situation anymore, but I'm still like thinking about it. And also like in like my relationships, even if things are going well, I am like, could this be going better? What is missing? What is it like if this person was doing this different, or if I was doing this different, like how could we be in a better state, in a better partnership? And I just always kind of feel like something could be better, or it's not where it should be.
Makes sense, makes sense. Yeah, there is a sentimentality to you, even if things weren't that great. The grass is always greener in some way, or this longing for that. Makes a lot of sense, Ella. Thank you for the vulnerable sharing. And so before we move on to the next type, for those who are curious about the 3 subtypes of the 4, the self-pres 4 is the long suffering of the 4. So they suffer silently. The social 4 suffers openly and tells other people about their suffering. And then the sexual 4 is makes others suffer. They project that suffering and anger onto other people. So we will move on to the Enneagram 5. And so, Stephanie, I am wondering what you relate to about the Enneagram 5.
There's so much. I guess what stands out the most would be the constant need to take in information and be learning. Like I always have to have a podcast. I always have a stack of books that I have to get through. Just constantly feeding. Like since I was a kid, I would pull out, those of you that are old enough to remember encyclopedias, that's what I would read at the breakfast table. And so yeah, just constantly needing to learn, and the confidence that comes with that. Even though there is a lot of self-doubt and like you feel that you're not competent enough, so you keep gathering knowledge and information. When you finally are able to present that information, because for me personally, it's generally when someone asks, I don't tend to put a lot out there just to broadcast it. But if someone shows interest and kind of opens a door for me to share something, that feels really, really good. And to be validated or to be recognized as like, oh, you really helped me with that, or you explained that in a way that I now understand, that's like such a compliment. There's something funny that I read in the description of 5 that I totally related to, and it's about this kind of sensation that comes when you're something that you've been reading about or learning about or formulating in your mind now suddenly becomes too conventional. Social media has just made that really difficult. Like things that I've been just learning about and kind of forming my ideas for years, if not decades, someone will put out like a 10-second clip and then everyone's repeating it. And it just makes me want to rip my hair out sometimes. And then before I go into the sexual, as as a 5, one of the other major things that I relate to is just always being an observer and kind of learning through observation, aside from taking in actively, but just taking in kind of, I guess to others it would seem passive, but to me it's active. Like I'm paying attention to what everyone is doing in a room, but I might be like off at a table by myself and not really engaging much unless someone comes to me to engage. And something else, I think a lot of what I'm going to say is going to make me sound kind of arrogant and selfish. So maybe that's where the avarice thing comes in. But I also have this hang up when people kind of highlight certain movies or songs that they find just so like revealing and eye-opening. And I'm like, haven't you just learned that through observation? Like we see that all the time in real life. You had to watch a movie to understand that. Like I sometimes cannot, it's hard for me to wrap my mind around that. But I guess I just take for granted that I'm always doing that. And as a sexual 5, like the desire to connect deeply with another person is always there. But I'm not always able to go to the depths that I really crave. So I kind of end up settling, or the cost of getting to that level of depth that I desire is really high. And so that just makes me want to like close off or just like stay on the surface because it's so energy intensive. All of the privacy things, like not sharing personal details, all of that resonates. So.
Thank you for sharing. And so we're going to go to the defense mechanism of the Enneagram 5. And this is called isolation. And it's more of a mental isolation. It can show up in the form of compartmentalization. So isolating yourself from your emotions or isolating yourself from people or other forms of that. So what are your thoughts?
Yeah, I would say I experience both the physical and emotional. Yeah, both the physical and emotional from others. Like I could be physically present with someone, but I will just kind of close myself off emotionally. And then the cutting myself off emotionally from myself. And especially like I feel things very deeply and strongly. I guess because I am the counter type, like we do have stronger feelings, but it's always very disturbing, and like I don't want to feel those things. So what happens almost automatically is if I am not by myself and I cannot actively process those emotions, there's a cutting off, and then everything goes mental, and there's just constant analysis that will not stop until either I verbalize it somehow, like in a voice note or something, or write it out. So it's more like analyzing what is going on, why this happened, why I had this reaction, and cutting myself off emotionally from people. It's just, if I feel that the energy expenditure is too high, it's like I'll just withdraw. Or if a place is too surface level or too overstimulating, it's like, okay, go into observation mode, sort of.
There is that desire to want to detach from overstimulating situations. So, well said. And so the passion of the Enneagram 5, as Stephanie already mentioned, is avarice. And so avarice is the hoarding of one's time, knowledge, and energy and resources out of the fear of having nothing. Do you have any more thoughts on avarice?
Yeah, I would say two things that are kind of related, but apart from what I've already said, would be my home is a place where I do not let anybody really, that unless they have to be there. in. Close friends, family members, like, you cannot come in. And if you do, it has to be like, I have to be totally prepared energy wise. Like, you have to know what the rules and boundaries are. It's very specific. And then the other aspect of it is there is a bit of avarice or greed with knowledge. Like, again, I guess I hold it so in such a sacred position that if I feel someone is just kind of tossing it around willy-nilly and like they don't understand the gravity of it, or I highly suspect, I have good reason to believe they're not gonna really appreciate the depth of what is behind all of that knowledge. Like, I don't want to share that. I just, like, it feels very selfish sometimes, but it's like a really physical sensation. Like, so yeah.
Yeah. Fives tend to know a lot of specialized knowledge in certain things. So it does take a certain person to understand it. And so it's like, why share if a lot's going to be lost in communication?
Yeah.
And the fixation of the five is stinginess. And so this is a scarcity paradigm around wanting to strategize how to control one's environment by controlling your knowledge, time, space, personal information, resources, and a stinginess with them. So yeah, I feel like you touched on it already, but if you have anything more to add, feel free to toss it out.
I think I kind of covered it, like with the home example and sharing of myself and information, or yeah. I don't know that I have anything else to add.
Yeah, you did a very comprehensive deep dive. You're able to touch on all the points. So good job, Stephanie. And so the three subtypes of the five are the self-pres five, which is known as castle. This is the most classically introverted of the fives. Whereas there's a social five that likes to intellectually bond with people of similar interests a lot. And then there's the sexual five, which is a more intense romantic five that is more in touch with their feelings than the other fives are. So, yeah. All right, so this brings us to the Enneagram 6, and this is Tina. So I'm curious, what do you relate to about the 6?
Okay, so I have my healthy/good days, and then I have my unhealthy/not so good days. So on my good days, I would say my dependability is something I take so much pride in. Like, for me, it's like, I wouldn't say I would do something for you, or I wouldn't, like, you know what I mean? Like, if I say I'm gonna do something, or I have your back, like, you can 100% depend on me. I wouldn't even open my mouth to say something, or if I don't fulfill the promise that I like made, I will at least try my best to do, like, to have a second best. Like, it's, I don't know if it's an ego thing, but it's like I have your back 100%, because maybe it's something I had lacking growing up. I never felt like I could depend on anyone. I never really had a strong family support system, or, well, friends in the past. I couldn't really rely on them. So for me, as an adult and in my years right now, I really want to be that person that people can turn to and depend on, and just be a shoulder that people can just lean on and not have to worry. Because in a world where everything is so, things are changing, things are volatile, it's just like, who do you really have? And for me, and that's why I really work on strengthening my, like, dependability. I don't ever want to, like, have people like, oh yeah, see, I knew she would come through, like, go through with it. And another quality I would say is my caring, helpful nature. Like, if I always call myself the mother, I make a joke that I am like the mother of the friendship group, of our family group. I'll always have everything prepared. So I'll have band-aids. I'll have, like, blotting sheets for, like, our oily faces. I'll have, like, picks for our teeth. I'm always just looking out for the people in my circle, and I want to be that caring person. And again, it kind of ties into dependability. Like, if you, I don't know if that makes sense, but if people can depend on me, wouldn't that mean that I guess maybe I'm caring enough that they would turn to me? So those are my two very prominent qualities. But on my unhealthy or not so good days, I would say it's kind of tied to what I said in the beginning. I have a suspicious nature. it's hard for me to trust people. Again, I trust myself, which is so weird because I know every time I say something, I go through with it. But for other people, I'm like, I don't know if I can trust you. Like, how do I know that you're gonna do what I will do? So I never take things to face value. It's not to say I don't trust people 100%. I'll always take with a grain of salt. And I also have a strong inclination to plan because I always foresee something bad. I don't even have plan B. Like, I already have plan C or like F already there. I'm not a perfectionist. I wouldn't say that. But for me, I always want to make every experience enriching for me or my friends. So it's natural for me to want to have like everything like lined up so that day goes how I imagined it. Maybe it's an expectation thing, but yeah, I wouldn't say like I'm a perfectionist or anything. I always just believe like it's possible for something to go haywire. Like even for me, like if I have an interview, I'll show up like 10 minutes before because I would have thought, okay, interview at 8:30, I have to be there at 8:15 because there's probably going to be maybe a traffic or there might be, maybe I might have forgotten something and I have to go back home and, grab my glasses or like my papers to prepare. So I always have something to kind of fall back on. I need a safety net. Otherwise, I just feel so off. But yeah, those are my qualities.
You're very prepared, organized, and structured, and dependable. I totally agree. Those are things I love about you. And so we're going to go into the defense mechanism of a 6, which is projection. And this involves the unconscious projection of unwanted emotions, attributes, and behaviors onto others. So how does this show up in you?
It's kind of funny because that actually showed up today and my sister got mad at me. So I looked into, again, just wanted to say I'm really new to Enneagram, so maybe some of the things and words I'm saying don't make sense, and I'm trying to just keep it simple. The reason I think I project is because I don't like uncertainty. I don't like ambiguity. So for me, it's like if I find that I project a lot. So okay, let me give an example. Today, my sister was looking into a self-help course, one of those personal life coaches, and I straight up told her like, well, how do you know they're going to be, solid? Like, if anything, I would refer you to my friend like Denzel or Joyce. Like, I know them. I trust them. Like, pay for their courses. Like, they sell courses. Why don't you invest in? And she goes, well, why would you say that about someone else? Like, you don't even know if they're good or not. You can't just assume. And I go, well, but I know Joyce and Denzel. I trust them. And she goes, Tina, like, you're projecting. That's unhealthy. You can't assume that people who sell courses are scams. And I think that's just a classic example of how I am. Like, it's horrible that I do that. I know when I do that, but for me, it's just I have to have some kind of knowing. Otherwise, I'm just going to start projecting.
Joyce's and Denzel's services are really good. I trust. So nothing wrong there. That brings us to the passion of the 6, which is fear. They project and it comes out of fear. It's this constant anxiety, whether it's low grade or at the front of your brain anxiety.
I think the most obvious one is just that I'm very hyper vigilant. Like, I'm always on alert. For me, I just have this, I guess, innate kind of like panic or like deep concern that something will go wrong or that something or someone can't be trusted. So I'm always just, and I don't even think I have anxiety or anything. I really don't. It's a voice in my head that tells me like, you gotta be like super prepared, or like, you gotta have this ahead of, like, even when I just do something simple, like when I go out with Joyce, I'll ask her, where do you want to eat? What time, what day? And then I'll even like look at the email to make sure it's exactly like what the reservation is. And if I expect a call, like, oh, sorry, we're booked up, like already in the back of my mind, I have like a second restaurant that I never told Joyce about, but it's there. And it's just, yes, it's really exhausting. But at the same time, I think at the core of it, I care about my people and I love them. And I never want to see me or the people around me, suffer and struggle and go through things where we're like, oh, we don't have that. Because I have it. Like, I want to see, like, I have this under my tool, like my belt of tools. And I just want to be able to say, oh, I got the hammer. Oh, I got the screwdriver, because I want, again, everyone to be happy, safe, and feeling like comfortable, if that makes sense.
Yeah, it's your mama bear energy. Oh yeah, Danny?
Yeah, if I can just say something. Yeah, Tina, yeah, absolutely love it what you said, because get me emotional, because it reminded me of my sister. I mean, she's ISTJ and sixth, definitely. And she absolutely sounds like you. And with you guys, it's so what's the word? It's so relaxing to be. I know. Just a second. It means that someone who likes to be in control can actually relax and let them take over, knowing that they want the best for you and you trust them completely. That's how I feel with my sister, and probably one of the the only person on planet Earth that I feel so safe to let her take over planning stuff. Like, I'm going to Europe soon, and I feel like, yes, like I trust her completely, totally. And I know that she wants the best for me. And I know also that she trusts me. So what you said in the beginning, completely, that's how she felt with me as well. She said that. So yes, I love you guys. You are awesome. That's all.
I gotta give props to the Enneagram 6s. So it seems like you know that you're dependable, but you don't know if other people are dependable. And so this planning or this anticipation of the future and making sure you cover all bases is because you've had experiences, or there's a mental model in your mind where people are irresponsible. You can't trust them to follow through or to do things. So you might as well be the one who takes care of that. And so the fixation of the 6 is cowardice. And so these are thoughts of doubt or worry that cause the continuous cycle of worst case or anticipatory scenarios. And so do you have anything else to add to that?
I feel like I've touched on a lot and that I'm overlapping, but I think, yeah, that's just the reason. Okay, so when I looked into the Enneagram 6, they say that we're loyalists. And I'm starting to connect dots to say that the reason why I'm wired this way is because at the core of it all, I'm very loyal to my people and to myself. So it's like, I don't know, like, yeah, like I just, having that safety net is so important. Again, I'm like repeating myself, but I guess it can be really exhausting. And I know I've drained people because people go, oh my God, just relax. Like, even if it doesn't go as you plan, it's not a big deal. But for me, it's like, yeah, but like to see you being disappointed that they didn't sell peaches at the store when I knew they sold it. Like, I just don't like letting people down. And I think maybe that's the Enneagram 6. You want to be loyal to people. And part of loyalty is you don't want to let people down or disappoint them. And so this is why I just want to make sure I have everything as good as possible. I don't want to say perfect because, again, I'm not a perfectionist, but yeah.
Well explained. So for the 3 subtypes of the 6s, it's the self-pres 6 is usually known as warmth, which an ENFJ can sometimes mistype as because ENFJs are warm. There's the social 6 that's typically associated with rules and duty. ENFJs typically, when they're 6s, are social 6s. It's not a one-to-one, right? But it happens often. And then there's the sexual 6. They go against anxiety by acting fearless. So they feel a lot of anxiety, but they just push it down. So they fight against the anxiety. It's called strength and beauty. And so, yeah, thank you, Tina, for staying on. I know you have to go, and you're lovely. You're a great friend, Mama Bear, and yeah.
Thank you, everyone. It was nice listening to Diane, Sebajay, Emrys, Ella, Stephanie, Cam, Danny, Denzel. I'm going to watch you guys on YouTube because I feel, like I said, horrible for not being able to attend. But thank you guys, and have a good night.
Okay, bye. I love how the ENFJs address everyone by name. Like, as you guys are pointing at everyone, you're like, I need to just tell everyone that they're seen and heard. You can't just say like a few people. You need to go through them all. So this brings us to Cam. And I'm not going to say your name like you're in trouble anymore. So
It's all good. It's all good. No problem.
Yeah. So I'm curious, what do you relate to about the Enneagram 7?
Yeah, well, like I said earlier, I'm still figuring this whole thing out. But from what I can gather, it's really interesting. I've been in a room or a panel or a group of 7s. And it's really interesting that I feel like I'm a lot more similar to the 7s than I am to this group of ENFJs. It seems like, I mean, it's just crazy how much different Diane is to Ella, to Stephanie, to it's pretty insane to think that that's how it is. But from what I can gather, what I see in myself is I see myself as a collector, right? Like I'm always collecting new friends or new toys or new talents, new experiences. I get bored really easily. I like to pick up new things and figure them out. I'm constantly trying to develop new skills. If I'm not doing that, I feel like I'm failing. I feel like I'm missing out on something. FOMO is, I know we left FOMO like in 2018, but like it's still very real and a serious motivator for me. Yeah, I feel like the sevens that I know that I it sounds rough, but I don't know a lot about this stuff, so don't take anything I'm saying too offensively. But a lot of the sevens that I know I don't like. Like I don't like a lot of the sevens. They seem too frenetic and maybe like unserious, and that's not me. Like I take everything I do very seriously, and I try to be very grounded with the way that I approach things. But at the same time, like I get bored easy, and so it's like I gotta find something new. I gotta try it out. My not to get too deep into this, but I'm a Christian and I'm a pastor at a church, and so my faith has really helped ground me in a lot of ways that I think if I didn't have that, I'd kind of be off the rails. But because of sort of the boundaries that it provides me, I think I'm a lot healthier than I could have been. But as a seven, I think I really connect with most of the things that people who know what sevens are have said about me.
Got it. So, because you're new and you're one of Denzel's closest friends, he can also chime in with certain things too. So, we're going to go on to the defense mechanism of the seven, which is rationalization. This is essentially the practice of spinning the undesirable into something better. So, kind of changing things, rationalizing things away. All right. So, Denzel and Cam, I'll let you.
Yeah, I mean, I think when I was reading that definition, I thought that was really interesting because I definitely think I do that, but I didn't know that I did that. Um, I, I tend to think of myself as an optimist, but also like a realist. So if something horrible happens, I try to find the bright spot. I don't think anything is ever that bad. I think there's always grace. There's always a chance to make up for it later. I think that there's good and even in the worst of us, and that even in the darkest situations, there's always a glimmer of hope. And so maybe that's um, I don't know, maybe that's a little immature, but I think it's helpful if it's done in a healthy way. When it's unhealthy, maybe I don't address the seriousness of issues that I face, um, because I'm trying to get to the happy feelings. I had an old friend once tell me that I was never sad for long enough, for as long as I should be. And I resonate with that. Like I don't like being sad. I don't think sadness is fun. Some people are like comfortable being not okay. I'm not okay being not okay. I need to figure out how to be okay again. And that's probably where that rationalization comes in.
Yeah, that makes a lot of sense. Yeah, happiness is the way to go. And it's a general extrovert thing too. Extroverts tend to prefer either happiness, optimism, or anger because it's motivating emotions. And so I am curious, how do you relate to the passion of the seven, which is gluttony? So wanting more variety, more stimulation. You went into this already, but anything else you'd like to add to it?
Yeah, I mean that's me. I'm gonna keep it a stack with you. Like that is my downfall. It is constantly chasing after the next thing, and sort of filling a void of probably dealing with the with the more important self-reflection and wrestling through the hardships and difficulties of what I'm actually feeling. One of the things that I've always struggled with, and that I think I'm getting a lot better with, is like figuring out exactly what I'm feeling. Sometimes I feel good, sometimes I feel bad, but when I'm feeling, and I'm better with the feeling good part. When I'm feeling bad, I don't often know why I'm feeling bad, or I don't know if I'm angry. I don't know if I'm sad. I don't know if I'm contemptuous. I don't know if I'm bitter. I just know it's not a good feeling. So I got to run off and chase down the next distraction. And that's definitely the unhealthy part of me there. Gluttony is like dead on accurate.
Back in college, I'll just say that Cameron was notoriously known for, hey, what we about to do? But he was always falling asleep whenever we were doing anything. Because a pattern that I've noticed with sevens is that FOMO, I know that you said that, it's like an old word, but it's huge for sevens. It's like, wait, I don't want y'all doing anything without me. So sevens a lot of times will try to invite themselves into certain situations, and they just want to make sure like I'm in the mix, or they'll even lead stuff so that they can continue to have things like going on that's entertaining them and other people. And yeah, Cameron, like, he was always falling asleep. And this, Tay was also a 7, same thing. He's always like, oh, yo, until he's falling asleep. And it's just a pattern that I've seen with like 7s. It's like they go until they crash. And then when they crash, it's not even proper, because then it's like, Cam, you trying to sleep? Oh, no, I'm good. We out to Waffle House, man. Like, bro, no, you're going to bed. But yeah, that was definitely a big thing about Cam. And I think the freneticness about 7s, like, is very big for them as well. For Cam, I think that's why we were able to be like really good friends, because he had it, but he had enough focus to where it's like, okay. But yeah, he still was like, I'm bored, and so it was almost like sometimes I found myself having to be like, especially as a 9, it's like, okay, how can I keep something spinning? Like, let me spin a basketball while I'm talking to him, because if not, I'm gonna lose his attention. So yeah.
He sounds like a fun person to be with. So yeah, always a good time. And so the fixation of the 7 is planning. And so this mental process is by which the brain goes into a hyper gear, moving into rapid succession from one thing to another. So yeah, we already touched on this. He's like, okay, Waffle House, and then to this other place, and then to this other place. So yeah, anything else to add, Cam?
Not really. I will say that it's been interesting to sort of look back on myself and see how I've changed and sort of evolved through time. It's crazy to think that I was going all the time. I'm getting old. I can't do it like I used to. And then I just got engaged to my fiance, and she's well, I like it, so I put a ring on it. You feel me? Yes, yeah. Give it up, give it up. And she took a test a while ago, and again, neither one of us are pros at this, but she's an INFJ, and so she has really she's really pulled me back in a lot of ways, to help me kind of wrestle through important things and talk through emotions and feelings and stuff that I don't really spend as much time as I should, kind of dealing with, and it's been cool to see, kind of how I can literally see the evolution of Cam, 6 years ago versus now, and it's pretty cool. I have a feeling that the first time I met Emrys, which was years ago at this point, I would shudder to think of the things that came out of my mouth at that time versus what I'm saying now. Also, Stephanie, I really I know this isn't what this is for, but at some point I would love to pick your brain more about who you are, because you, out of everyone, and don't take this the wrong way, you seem very much an outlier, and I don't know why. I don't really understand how an ENFJ could have that sort of I don't know, centering energy, maybe verging on a little scary, and I just feel like I don't know. It's you seem the everything that you were saying, I felt like I understood and it made sense, but I wouldn't say it. I wouldn't say it like you, or it wouldn't come out the way you did. And I think that's I don't know. I think that's really cool. But yeah, still figuring this all out.
I think that's also interesting because sevens also have arrow movement to five. So all that scatteredness that you have, when you're becoming healthier, then you start to actually focus more, like how an Enneagram 5 tends to do. So it's like, oh, I would say it like that. I'd say it like that, but I wouldn't, or I think that, but I wouldn't say like that. That's probably like you like moving to that fiveness in a way.
A little bit of that aspirational arrow movement to 5 going on. And general ENFJ fascination with Stephanie. So yeah, Danny's like, Stephanie has to stay after. I have to talk with her. and it's funny how the stingiest one of all the Enneagrams is the one who's like, everyone's like, can you give us your resources now? Yes.
Yeah, I think
five is the
that's
most
weird. That's
uncommon for ENFJ. So that's also why too.
Well,
Enneagram
I-
5 is the most
weird.
uncommon. And then secondly is Enneagram 4. But yeah.
Well, I don't know. Maybe it's that collector part of me. It seems like everybody else has been super forward with like bearing their souls. And, like, I'll tell you everything about me. I like talking about myself, not in like a cocky way, but like you asked a question, so I'm going to answer it. Stephanie was like, I'm going to answer this, but there's also this part of me that I'm not going to tell you about. And so I'm like, okay, tell me about it. Like, I don't know. It's just interesting.
Yeah, you notice that she's withholding something, so it makes you more intrigued. There's a mystery to Stephanie, the sexual 5 mysterious aura. It's quite
Sorry,
beautiful.
last thing. Can you do me a favor and explain like the social, the sexual, and the I don't know the other one.
Yeah. So the 3 subtypes of the 7 are the self-pres 7, which is known as the networker 7. And then there is the social 7, which is the countertype. It's known as sacrifice. So this is the most giving of the 7s. They'll give you the big slice of pie so they can have the little piece of pie because they want to
That's
sacrifice.
Cameron. That's Cameron for sure. Yeah.
And then there's the sexual 7, who is the dreamer 7. So yeah, those are my short and sweet summaries. All right. Danny, take it away.
Okay, take away. All right. Well, the first, what I was having in my mind is I would like to thank everyone for like saying all the truth about yourself, what you said, because I kind of felt that. And I don't know, I think it's because of ENFJ-ness. We all feel everyone, like everyone. And I believe strongly, as I said before, of the mic, that yes, I think that ENFJ are empaths in general, and that they can feel every other emotions that people have, and they can relate with everyone else. Well, I really can, and so yes, I don't want to go like talking about every single person, but yes, I can really relate with everyone that everyone says. But with me, the story goes that for the longest time, I thought I'm 2. And then as I said, I thought I'm 4 and I'm this and I'm that. And I never thought that I'm something like 8. But I am 8. I'm 8 to the core, actually. But then this is the thing that 8 has this thing on the internet that they're very, like aggressive and they're bullies and that's not true. I actually studied this really in length, and I studied last night, all night long. And 8 are the least of the bullies. They're the ones that stand up to bullies. And that was me all my life. This is me. I just go for a jugular if I see that someone is attacking anyone. Anyone, doesn't matter what they are, even if they're related to me or not related to me. I just so injustice is it's a really big thing for me. So if I could put few words there, would be justice, injustice, loyalty, and loyalty is big for me. Like that's how I knew really that I am what I am. justice and loyalty is so strong that I can't even, I was telling that to my husband, I just can't even put in words. That is how strong it is. Like I feel all the passion and everything in me going toward that. So I'm not scared. This is the interesting part. Asking like, how people are scared or whatnot. I don't have a fear of anyone but God. And this is the truth. I really don't, because I do know my power, and I learned to know my power just last couple of years. I never really knew what person I am, but I learned to know, to learn more about myself and stuff like that, and what I'm able and capable of. But then in saying that, all my life, the one person that I was terrified of, like really scared, was actually this is the vulnerability part. I don't like it, but it's myself. I am absolutely so scared of myself. That's no joke. And my mom used to tell me, when I was little, she used to tell me, no one would ever change you. Only God can change you. And I used to say to her, oh, well, he can try. Let's see if he can. And to be honest with you all, yes, well, he did. And I got to know the truth about God. And he did change me. And I am a changed person on a way that I always love to know the truth about everything, like everything. Like whatever I do, I do like to know what is the ultimate truth about stuff. So that's why it really hurts me. Like I resonate with Stephanie when she said about stuff like that, about knowledge. When I speak and people don't listen, well, this is the thing. I wish I'm more like a Stephanie, to kind of back down and like, oh yeah, they don't respect what I have to say and my truth. Like I should just kind of shut up. But with me, as an 8, I just go for it. Like, yeah, you have to know this is the truth, and this is. But yeah, the world and the people don't react. It's really hard for me, and to be totally here vulnerable. Like, yes, I feel like that is a thing that I'm dealing with at the moment as well, because I am what I am. I'm also health coach and life coach, and I am functional medicine professional. So for me, I really love to know what the truth is. And when I speak, I know that I speak from a knowledge and not just speaking rubbish. You know what I mean? Like, so when I see that people don't respect what I have to say, I double down, and I also, but then again, I get withdrawn and I get kind of hurt, and I get into 5, like unhealthy kind of 5. I get into isolation and I don't want to speak anymore, and I just need a space for myself. And this brings me to say this thing, how I knew fully, even with the Enneagram coach that I had, which was excellent guy, really. You probably all know Tom. Anyway, he said to me, yeah, you definitely 8, being 7, and which I am. But how I knew that is that in a stress line, I go to 5, and I really go to 5. And I mean, really. And as ENFJ, I go totally, I just want to be alone. Totally alone. I want to study. I want to do the podcast, like a listening podcast, which I do all the time, by the way. I love it. That's my passion too. I love knowledge so much. I love to know the truth about everything, because ultimately I believe in one. You probably all resonate with me, but I do believe in one truth about everything. It cannot be billion truths. Years ago, when I didn't know what I am or who I am, I used to be in a parties, and it was all intellectual kind of parties. and they would say something that so long ago, I'm not 20s anymore, right? Resonate with me. Yes, they used to say, okay, this is what they used to say. The ceiling is white. Usually it's white, right? And from this angle, you can see that's not white. It's like a gray or dark or whatnot because of the shadow. But then again, what is the ultimate truth? The truth of the meta is not how, yes, we perceive that, but the ultimate truth that is white. For me, that was a big thing, and it's forever resonates with me. And that's how I come to know, to learn more about the truth, about myself and about justice and all of these things. So how it resonates with me is all of these things and together. Yes, sorry, like I'm rambling, but yeah, that's basically kind of that. That's me.
Well explained, yeah. Eights are really good at defending against perceived injustices. So they're the ones that are willing to be the one who is like, this is not okay, this should not be going on, and be the one to put a stop to it. And so the defense mechanism of the eight is denial. And so this is a classic ostrich with its head in the sand. What is your experience with denial?
Denial. Well, denial that maybe denial that, okay, the biggest one probably would be denial that, wow, that people, we all have a free will, right? And we can decide for ourselves. So denial that I can't influence someone to change their mind. Being really truthful here. Meaning, I believe in power of the, if something is right, how come you can't see it? Like, it's so hard for me to even explain that. Like, I can't. So denial of all of that, and denial of me feeling kind of weak in that area. It is very hard. I know it sounds really maybe stupid for most of the people, but for me, it's a big deal. It's a big deal. So yeah, I'll just leave it to that.
Yeah, the eight believes that they are able to change the situation, which is why they do take action. So well said. And so the passion of the eight is lust. Could you go into that?
Yes. Okay. So where to start with that? Okay. So it's like, since I know myself, you are too much. Stop it. You are too intense. You are just overbearing. You are this, you are that, you are blah, blah, blah. I mean, come on, guys. I'm sitting on an exercise ball, right? So I am full of energy, and I forever was since I was a little girl. Like I'm now, like I am just full of energy, and that's what I am. And it's I don't know. Everything I do, it's like a not 100%, but maybe 200%. Like everything I do with passion. Like with everything. Like I take everything. Like if something interests me, I don't go halfway. I go double way. Like I go all into it. I want to know. I want to know everything about it. Maybe that is a TI there, right there. But feeling like maybe I never know enough, and that is probably my biggest issue. TI as ENFJ, the fourth function. But that's why I'm very aware of it, especially in later in years and stuff like that. I learned to appreciate it more, and I don't know, I can't explain it, but yeah, TI. I don't know. It's very, very there with my last thing to know everything, to kind of go for it, and with everything I do, really everything I do, even at the if it's I don't know a gym or whatever, like I go for it. Like yes, if you are next to me in a treadmill, like you be sure I will kind of go for it. Like it's I don't know, it's really stupid, but I go full on force with everything I get in everything I do. But this is who I am. And people think like my beautiful husband, he thinks that, yes, you just kind of chill out, and he's awesome. I mean, he's just awesome. He is ISFP 9-8, and he's just great. He's full of energy too, but different. Like he put me down kind of thing, like, okay, now like settle down, yes, be just like a normal person and blah blah blah. I just can't be normal. Like I have to go all in. And I know it sounds really like what this girl's doing, like it's too much. But I feel everything I do, I don't speak if I don't believe in something, if I can say that. Yeah, that's me. If I speak, I don't speak if it's about knowledge and the stuff that I know about the health and stuff like that, because that's my passion as well. I do not speak unless I am 200% sure that it's the truth. So, well, my clients told me, the ones that I have and had, that is right, because I am really passionate about empowering other people, doing like really wanting them to be good. But this is me in my best as the 8. But as a, you probably will ask me, but as a verse, I wouldn't even say that that's a verse. I go into the 5, but I go in a 5, yes, in isolation. Maybe the bad thing about me is that I burn the bridges. And maybe it's good, maybe it's bad, ENFJ thing, but maybe you should burn the bridges that you don't want to cross ever again. So I don't know. I really don't know. I mean, I'm still working that out as I speak to you guys, truthfully and honestly. So yeah, that's just who I am.
That was well said. I love the passion behind your voice. Yeah, I think the Enneagram types most likely to burn bridges is the 8 and the 4 for different reasons, which we may go into one day. So you can see there's this need for the 8 to be full in. When they're in something, they are 200% into that thing. So that's well explained. And so the fixation of the 8 is vengeance. This is the process of rebalancing wrongs through thoughts related to anger, blame, and intimidation. This relates back to when you talked about you'll stand up for those who need justice. So do you have anything else to add?
Yes, I would say this is what I would say. I would say I would not do, because what I am, I would not do the vengeance on other people. But I actually wrote down this: do not underestimate me. Meaning, like with me, vengeance would be like, you thought I can't do that? I'll show you who I really am. So I was like that again since I was a little girl and teenager. If I tell you the story, I would never finish it. So it's just really long stories. But let me tell you, I kind of did vengeance on some, how to say, like, I don't know, I don't want to even say ESFJ girls, but the popular type of girls. So I did my nice revenge on a way that I actually show them who I really am. And it always kind of goes to that area of not wanting to hurt others, but wanting to show them, okay, well, hold on a second. I can show you what I am, and you can maybe become better by being that. Maybe this is where ENFJ comes shining through. Like, I don't want to tremble other people. Like as an 8, like people think, I want to destroy you. No, I absolutely do not want to destroy. This is for a record, everyone. I do not want to destroy anyone ever. I just wish so much that everyone change for better. That everyone, that I just wish that everyone can see that example, like just one word sentence. What I am good at you are not. What you are good at, I am not. Hello, anybody. Like, this is equal level. We are all the same. We are all the humans. What is this thing about comparison and competition? I hate it. I actually hate it. So and my vengeance comes to when you put me down, I will show you. I will then show you another level, and then you rise to my level. I know it sounds really stupid and maybe probably, presumptuous, which I know in my heart I'm not, but sounds like it. My point is rise above. You can do this. I can do that. You can do that. We all can do this. Sorry, this is nothing on my list what I had here. This is just from my heart. I'm sorry.
I love it. No need to be sorry. This is wonderful stuff. I'm realizing that eights make really good motivators for people. They really empower you. When they talk, they're like, yeah, you have inner potential. Reach into that. The power. You got it. So I think
too much energy.
You're feeding into people. You're giving people energy. So people believe in themselves more after
I
hearing you.
really feel that. I know it sounds, and I know you don't have to tell me, but I know most of people thinks, oh yeah, you are just like, like, yeah, you're just saying it kind of thing. Like, yeah, you are all, no, I really believe that. I mean, I really believe what I'm saying. Like, I can't explain it. I am not forcing it. I am not, this is the word. I'm not faking it. This is the truth. And maybe you might, okay, I'll just tell you one little experience that I had it all my life. I said to my husband when I was in a school, right? In a school, like in a high school. And I knew that I can influence people, but I stayed background. I tried to kind of just let other people take it over. And the truth is of the matter, something that always stuck with me, and it's always in my head. One situation in a classroom, right? And the teacher asked about something. Who will stand up for something? And I was silent. Nothing. Never forget that. Till I live, I will never forget that. Whole classroom turn up to me. Who will speak in their behalf? This is God is my witness. This is the truth. And they all look up to me. Come on, Daniela, speak up. You're the one. And I'm like, what? Really? Well, I didn't even want to speak up. I didn't want to tell what I thought or what is the truth is. I had to stop. And I stood up and I said, okay, I will speak then. They all just naturally looked to me to speak up. And I never forgot that. It's always here somewhere in my head. And yeah, I just wanted to say that because this is one experience in my life that it's very kind of important to me. So yeah, that's it.
Yeah, because people expect you to not be a bystander. You're the opposite of the bystander effect, where like a lot of people watch and do nothing about it. You're like, you got to do something about it. And so you are a badass is what I'm getting out of this. So
I didn't even try to be that, but yes, exactly. I didn't. I tried to be kind of out of the spotlight, and they were like, there is, you speak up, because I wasn't scared to speak up, because I'm not scared of any humans. This is the truth about me, and I'm in it. I am not scared.
And Simanche, you.
Yeah, I just want to jump in because I listening to her, I'm kind of thinking in my head, I'm kind of like, is it type 2s that are in their stressful type 8 is what actually gives like, the bad rep? Because like everything that she said, I resonated 100% to it. But for me, the way that she,
you too.
yeah, and I was like, but the way you articulate it and the actual intention that you have is 100% different from how I feel when I'm in that type of mode. Because I also get very committed to things, but sometimes when I'm committed to it, it's because I need to prove it. I need to make sure that everyone knows that like I'm good. And you're kind of like I'm hard on you because I want to also like lift you up. But like sometimes for me, I'm kind of like, oh, I'm going to be hard now because I tried to be soft. And then I was like, so now I'm destroying everyone and I want to get up there. And like, I feel like, like, I think that that's why like fighting, like doing Taekwondo really helped me with that, because it kind of made like my type 8 situation, my stress, a good outlet. And I was like, but it's very interesting because I also have a lot of situations where people look at me, they're like, oh, Samaje, he's like the outspoken one. Oh, he's going to stand up for us. But like a lot of times, like deep inside, I don't want to do it. And I'm kind of doing it like I'm kind of sacrificing myself, but you're kind of doing it because you're fearless. And I think that's interesting, because I was like, oh, like, why wouldn't I want to be in my type 8 energy? But then now I'm looking, I was like, we are doing it for 2 different reasons, for a whole different reasons. So that's very enlightening.
I totally agree with you. That's why I thought in the beginning, like I am a 2, and then I thought I'm 4. And then I resonate with 3 and 4. I'm like, what is this? And I always took 8 like, yeah, right, no. And yeah, that was it. And to be honest, with the worst of the 8, I am a bit embarrassed, and it sounds like, I don't know, it's just a really weird feeling of it. But I know that my intentions are good, and I know that people think that I'm too much and whatnot. And I am, to be honest with you guys, I'm just so over it. People saying how 8s are too much because they're just themselves. I mean, if they're healthy, I guess. I mean, not that I'm saying I'm the healthiest one. I'm definitely not. I can be very, and this is where it comes when I realized that I'm an 8 is is actually full on when I realized. And for a record, for everyone on internet who wants to know the where they are at with Enneagram, go to your stress line. And that's how I knew that, yes, I am 8, because I go to 5 when I'm stressed out. And when I'm full on stress, I go isolation, full mode, full on. So, yeah.
That makes a lot of sense. And so for people who are new to the arrows, some schools of thought say that you go to 1 arrow in stress and 1 arrow in growth. But now emerging Enneagram teachers are saying that both of your arrows, you go into both growth and stress. You both integrate and disintegrate in both your arrows rather than previously conceived of thoughts of only one way. We're learning that 2s who are going to their 8 arrow might be a little on the meaner side. And I also think it's the sociopathic 8s that give the 8s a bad reputation. Yeah. So it's like there's a small population, since 8s have a really strong personality. They can either be really good people who fend for the underdog and do all the right things for justice, or if they're sociopathic, they have that strong personality that they use for bad means. But most 8s are great people. So beautiful representation, Danny. Yeah, you're really empowering people. You're getting an applause here. So the 3 subtypes of 8 are, there is the self-pres 8. They have that strong personality, but they're a little quieter, take care of their resources type. There is the social 8 that is protecting their group, their tribe, their people, and groups of people. And then there's the sexual 8, one-on-one intense 8. That brings us to the Enneagram 9, DZ. So how do you relate to it?
Well, I have 2 disclaimers that I want to say right away before I say whatever I have to say. Number 1, I think it's very ironic that the Enneagram 9, out of all of the 9 Enneagram types, is the one that goes last at 11:55 p.m. Eastern, because my whole narrative is that I love to care. Like, I care more about what other people think and have to say and everything. And so my second disclaimer is that I'm not saying any of this for validation or anything like that. I'm just saying it for the information. So that's it. So that being said, my narrative / belief is that, oh yeah, I don't really matter. Nobody really like cares about what I have to say, or, I'm not as important, etc. And it's a genuine belief, to the point where it's like, oh yeah, well, of course, like so and so didn't ask about me, or of course this is because it's like, yeah, why would they? I'm not enjoyable. I'm not fun. I'm not interesting enough. I'm not this, And so I think that I don't know, I just thought that was like very interesting. But that's one of the biggest things I relate to as a Enneagram 9. And I think it's all doubled down with ENFJ preferences, plus being self-preservation repressed. So it's like a double, because the nines are like known as like peacemakers and stuff. So it's like it's a double like obsession with like other people. Like Uranio and Beatrice Chestnut, they said that nines think too much about others and they talk a lot about other people. But then when it comes to like talking about themselves, and it's like, shh, and that's something that I had to like really practice. So one thing that I wrote like back in 2018, I'm literally just gonna say it like really quickly because I didn't even know I was a 9 back then, but I feel like it's one of the most 9 things I ever wrote that just gives a very good feels. I called it sandboxes, and it was just a stream of thought. But I said I have a paranoia of boring people, not as in a fear of people who will bore me, but more of a fear of others being bored by me or uninterested in the things I say or would like to discuss. Consequently, I often prefer to go to other people's sandbox when we are at play, conversation, or anything along those lines. I prefer to learn all about your needs, desires, topics of interest, and overall what makes you happy. Then I adapt accordingly. I do this because I know that often when it comes to it, I will genuinely be much more interested and natural at doing this than asking that of the other person. I wouldn't suffer in my mind and long to be asked about my sandbox, even if so, not nearly as much as the other person may. However, until the person demonstrates on their own, very important, very like minded things I have in my own sandbox and shows not only a consistent and genuine interest to visit and play in mine for once, my sandbox will always remain elusive, a mirage. I won't dare waste my time or theirs. So that's something that's like really big for me. But then I also know that my Enneagram movement is to 3. So I'm supposed to be thinking to myself like, yeah, Denzel, you're badass. You're like this. You're like exactly. So it's like I have to push myself to share when I'm on YouTube. Even right now, like all of this is like, okay, Denzel, you're an Enneagram 9, so perpetually you believe that other people don't care about what you have to say, and then that perpetuates it because you don't share, you don't show up. So how can you actually continue to believe that if you don't even really test it? And there's been a lot of times where I have tested it and it's like, yeah, see, these people really don't care. So stop casting your pearls to swine. But then there's also been times where it's like, oh no, wow, I shared and these people actually cared, and this is that. And so, you start kind of like learning it, and then yeah. But yeah, that's like one of like the biggest things for me is like a 9. It's like I really do like listening to everybody before me. I think that's also like the benefit of being a 9 is like I genuinely enjoyed listening to everybody else and like learning more about them. And that's one of the reasons why I love like type and stuff like so much, because I just love like learning about people and getting intimate with them, and that's a big thing. But yeah, then the irony is like, oh well, I had to do the 9th thing is sloth, which is I think Joyce is probably gonna ask me about, but it's like a psychological sloth of like, so how about you, Denzel? Because you're so outwardly focused on everyone else and learning all about them, and then especially being an ENFJ, then that's a double thing. And then it's like, oh, I didn't really think that people would actually care to know about whatever's going on in me. So I spent the last few years like really diving into myself and trying to like learn more about myself so that I can create and foster more intimacy only for those who actually care about what I have to say. Because if you don't, then I don't care to share it with you. So I've started like to think more of like, I think my movement to 3 has been more of like, okay, not everybody cares, and that's okay, because now you've actually found gold within yourself, and not everybody deserves that gold. And some people are there before, and then they kind of leave the gold mine, and that's fine. They're in the Hall of Fame, but they no longer want to mine there anymore, and that's okay. But you keep on digging into yourself. So yeah.
So there's that self-canceling that goes on because there's this automatic assumption that you don't matter and everyone else matters. So, Danny, yeah.
I just wanted to say, because my husband, he's 9, and he said to me exactly what you said. He said, "Oh, like it's a kind of fear of his is that he's boring." That dude is everything but boring. I mean, he's so not boring. He is like a full-on, like, and he's ISFP, right? He is 9, being 8. He's so interested, and he is so inspirational to other people as well. And he always has something interesting to say, but he always has this thing, as you said, Denzel, like maybe I will, bore people and this. No, guys, no, you will not. You are awesome. I mean, I just can't. Like, he's the one that helped me out, to be honest with you, totally. Like, it's just crazy stuff. Like, maybe I helped him to get out of his shell, but he helped me to kind of, to be normal in that level, like on a level base. So yeah, you guys, so interesting. It's not just no joke. Anyway, so thank you so much for being you. That's all.
I appreciate you.
That's so sweet. The 8's empowering people who feel low on themselves. As you can see in real time. There is the 9. Their defense mechanism is narcotization.
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 Narcotizing / narcotization. Yeah.
Yeah. The type 9 defect. I almost said defect.
Keep the bloopers.
The type 9 defense mechanism is narcotization. And so this has to do with numbing themselves to cope with difficult situations.
Yeah.
How does that show up in you?
I've worked on this, but especially being FE Dom plus social sexual, so that means self-preservation repressed. It's like everything is externally focused. And so my feelings, like my own feelings for stuff, I'm very much like tapped out. Somebody literally asked me the other day, an INFP Enneagram 4. She was like, so when you're upset, like, do you viscerally feel it, or do you just know that you're upset? I was like, oh, I just know I'm upset, but I don't like feel it, like in me. And so I've always been confused when people like actually like get very enraged and stuff, because I'm like, that person doesn't know how to keep a center. They're not Zen, like stuff like that. But then I ended up realizing like, oh, wait, I probably just don't feel things as much as they do. Like they probably like it just wraps up and I feel it from them. And I used to think like, what's wrong with you? Like, why do you have such anger management problems that this small thing just pisses you off like that quickly? But then I realized like, oh no, I'm the one who's like asleep to my emotions in that way, which can be healthy because, especially as a social 9, it keeps me more like objective when I'm like leading a group and stuff like that. Or like, I really believe the whole idea of like being offended is a choice, where I've realized a lot of people disagree with that. But for me, it's like, you say something to me and I don't have a visceral reaction. I'm like, oh, well, why do you think that? And boom, 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 interesting. And so it's like, logically, I know like, okay, that's offensive, but I don't feel the offense. But then, yeah, I also just know like I detach very easily too. Like there was a time where it was years ago, but I had like, it was like one time that I had upset Jamila so much that I literally just started thinking like, oh, she's about to divorce me, this, that, all of that. And when she had like come back or whatever, like while I was thinking that she was about to divorce me, I was very like sad and distraught about it. But my mind, I watched it instantly go like, well, you've made your bed, now you got to lay in it. And this is just life. And, and it just starts like numbing out everything. It starts numbing out the pain from it. It's not that I want it to happen or that I'm, but it's just kind of like, there's nothing you can do. So you just surrender to it. And then she came back and she's like, why would you even think that? Like, I wasn't even that serious or whatever. And I'm like, oh, but I see myself do that like a lot. Like I just, I don't care. No, yeah. Like, and it's not like a flex like, I don't care. Like it's really like, oh yeah, it is kind of like what it is. So I think that's like really big for me. It's like I'm just I really genuinely do feel like very zen internally, like almost always, because it's just like I'm not really as connected at times. But I've been trying to also like tap into it with like FI work, even though it's not my primary function stack to like, and I preserve the, anger for special situations. So yeah. But when I get angry, then I'm exhausted afterwards. And so it's like, and then I get even more angry because it's like, why the did you get me to this level? Now I'm even more upset at you because you got me here and that was exhausting. And so, yeah.
Yeah, it's like it was so much easier to self-forget. You have to pass a lot of loops to make me angry like this,
Yeah.
because my natural state is I can easily numb emotion. Yeah.
Precisely. Yeah.
So this brings us to the passion of the 9, which is sloth, and it's essentially self-forgetting. And so Denzel is a master of this, which is why he's like, being offended is a choice, being angry is a choice, feeling these emotions is a choice, because I'm so tuned out of them and myself that it takes effort to tune into myself and to get angry. It's kind of
Yeah.
like the opposite of probably Danny, because Danny being an 8 is actually pretty in touch with her anger. So the 9 is like the least in touch of their anger of all, in contrast.
Yeah, no, that's all right. It even goes into like jealousy, like in the past when I've been like kind of jealous of like partners and stuff like that. Then immediately I do a lot of like mental gymnastics, like I don't like this feeling, and then I have techniques on how to not feel jealousy anymore. So it's just like, yeah, it's very interesting how that works, and I to just like watch myself do that. And it's like also just naturally being like a stoic, like in the stoic philosophy. I was called that like twice before I actually even knew what it was. I thought that stoic was just like having like a stoic face, but then people are like, hey, are you a stoic by any chance? And I'm like, what? And I looked into it, I'm like, oh wow, like yeah, I just kind of already live by this, like I don't let my highs get too high because then I might fall, but I don't let my lows get too. It's almost like what Cameron said, like I don't like being super sad either, so I don't let it like get to that level. I like a very like even keel, kind of like chill vibe that I try to maintain.
That is a good vibe that many people around you benefit from. So the fixation of the 9 is laziness. So this is lethargy in paying attention to one's own feelings and needs and disabling them from taking right action. So
Yeah, I'm someone who so the psychological nine's thing is sloth. So it's a psychological laziness. It's not like actually laziness. But it's more of like when it comes to like figure out my own psyche or like my own feelings or whatever, I don't really feel like going deep into that. What do I really want kind of thing. So that's stuff I had to really work on to find myself interesting. Look internally to then be like, oh, now that I know, like I can believe that I'm interesting to myself, even if other people might not view me as interesting and everything like that. As long as I can find myself interesting, now I can like spend time with myself and in myself and enjoy that. And then the people who do also find it interesting, then they are worthy of the gold that I can foster that intimacy with, which is what my biggest goal is. I'm always just trying to foster deeper and deeper intimacy with people, but you can't foster intimacy with people if you're not sharing yourself. And then especially as a social 9, like Troy Bolton from High School Musical, I believe that he was an ENFJ social 9, and you could see how like, yeah, the whole team, like they all loved him and everything, but they didn't really like know him, like he was the leader of the team and all that, but like even then he was like afraid to like tell them that like he sings and everything because he wanted to like be so much part of like the group and everything like that and lead them, that he never really was actually showing up. But that was also kind of his own fault. Like share yourself. I think that also Encanto, I forgot her name, Mirabel. I think that she was also an ENFJ social 9, social self-preservation for her. But yeah, I think that like it was very interesting to see how in that movie, even though a lot of people think like, oh, she's like ENFP or something like that, I think that she was actually an ENFJ. And in that movie, like you can see how she literally was left out like from the group. She was doing everything for the family and everything. They all weren't even aware of like how much she works to like, you know, support the group and everything. And it was like thankless work. She was like, oh, cool with it. But then she was also like the only one who didn't have any power. So like social nines always somehow feel like left out from whatever. I think that Tarzan, he's an ISTP, but I think that he was a social nine and he's like, man, like I just want to be part of the gorillas, you know, like and stuff like that. But even though like he became a leader, that he still felt like he wasn't really like part of them for a while. And he just wanted to gain acceptance with them. So I feel like that's something that I'm always struggling with. And I try to really do my best to, you know, check myself. Like, Denzel, are you really doing all that you can to like show up in the group? But yeah, sometimes it could also be like something as simple as like nines are usually like they're known as peacekeepers / peacemakers because they don't like conflict. I usually say that it's not that I am averse to conflict, but I'm more avoidant of unnecessary conflict. Like if there's two paths and one can be with less rah-rah stuff and the other one has to do with like more like aggressive stuff, why would I go the more aggressive way when I can just take the less rah-rah kind of thing? Like, let's handle this in a civil manner. Yeah, that might require more patience, more communication and everything, but I want to do that. However, I don't run away from conflict. If me and Stephanie have an issue, I'm not going to try to sweep it under the rug. I'm like, all right, this is getting in the way of our intimacy and our connection. Let's talk about this like now, especially as an FE dominant, because it's like, yeah, we can get to the bottom of this. We can like hash this out or whatever. Cool. The conflict is gone. Great. Now we can get back to intimacy. Like that's what I'm always aiming for, intimacy. And then lastly, the conflict thing can come up with like the psychological laziness can even go as far as to being like, okay, my wife could ask me, so do you want Chipotle or do you want KFC? And I genuinely do not have a preference because psychological laziness. I don't have a preference between these two. So I'm like, oh, you know, whatever you want, because it goes back to the sandboxes thing. I'm sure that whatever she chooses, I will enjoy it more than if I were to make a decision, maybe. And then it's like, oh, you know, whatever. But if she's like, no, Denzel, like you have to pick. So then now I actually start to think and go past the psychological laziness and come up with a preference. And I'm like, okay, I want Chipotle. Then she's like, I kind of hoped that you would pick KFC. Now I'm upset because it's like you made me go past my psychological laziness to actually have a preference. And then lo and behold, my preference ended up becoming conflicting with yours. Why did you make me do this? Like, why did you set me up? And that's obviously not what she intends to do. But it's like, yeah, if I'm on the fence for something, I'm really okay with anything. So just let's go with whatever I'm on the fence with. But then the few times I actually do have a preference and then people don't go with it, then I guess that's where the passive aggressiveness can come out. It's like, I never asked for anything. And this one time that I wanted to play Mafia, you guys didn't want to play. Okay. Okay. And so, yeah.
Yeah. So the three subtypes of Enneagram 9 are the self-pres 9, which they fall asleep to themselves by going through routines and having routines. Then there's the social 9. They fall asleep to themselves by working hard for the groups that they're a part of and people. And then there's the sexual 9, which merges with their other chosen one. So well explained, Denzel. You are not boring at all. Very interesting and very fascinating individual. Thank you, everyone, for coming out today. I learned a lot about ENFJs, so thank you a lot. And the flavors that you come in, so this was very illuminating. It's interesting, Denzel's metaphor about sandboxes, and it's not that you're afraid of other people being boring, you're afraid of yourself being boring to others. And so, yeah, I'm like, oh. and then the 8's like, and Danny's like, I must protect this precious individual from harm. And so it's great to see the Enneagram types at work and the love and camaraderie between you all. And it's nice to see how Emerus, he weaves spirituality in with being a 3, so he describes it very differently. I liked how he added his own personality into his Enneagram type, creating a very interesting flavoring. Never before seen. So and yeah, Simaje, I appreciate your flattery and how you sprinkle it to all the panelists. And so everyone gets a little bit of words of affirmation. So fun fact, some love languages are correlated with some Enneagram types, and Enneagram 2 is correlated with words of affirmation. So he was able to demonstrate his skill in that. And then there is Stephanie, the mystery and able to articulate herself very clearly, succinctly. And then everyone being enamored by her because she is like, who is this girl? Gonna put the 5 on the spot when she is like, man, I'd rather fade into the background and not waste my energy on things that I don't want to waste it on.
Y'all are not allowed to become friends with her though, because it's already hard enough for me to drag stuff out of her. So I don't need y'all trying to share in the pot.
Yeah, Denzel doesn't need people sharing her,
I'm
so
kidding.
yeah. There is Diane. Her perfectionism, it can stem on washing plates perfectly, but it also stems in the videos that we create together, and they're very perfect. So you make them beautifully, and the things you say are very perfect. So, and then there's Cam. He is this socialite who likes to party until he cannot party anymore. His body can't take it. So, yeah, this is the embodiment of staying young. So, if you want the fountain of youth of the Enneagram types, it's the Enneagram 7, who's like, yeah, we enjoy your fun lovingness that you bring. So, yeah.
I'm just trying to get like Danny.
Yeah. All right, so it is past midnight, and so we're gonna call it a night tonight. And it was great chatting. See you all in the next episode. Take care.
Bye. Thank you guys.
Thank you.